welcome back. It's Christine again with the Artist Pod, and today we'll be drawing a snowflake. As always, I'm using a Wacom Intros Pro tablet, and I'm drawing straight into Photoshop. So, let's get arting. Alright, so I know I'm starting here with a blank canvas instead. I just thought I would show, usually I do a 15 by 18 inch sort of canvas because I'm thinking about t-shirt designs. You can of course design bigger. Of course, the bigger it is, the harder, or you'll have to change your brush size at some point. I usually keep my brush size at 15, as you can see here. So to draw a snowflake, the first thing we're going to do is the first thing I always do, and that's I start a new layer, which is right down here. And I'm going to fill it with black, like always. And then I'm going to start a new layer. Select the brush tool if you haven't already, right? So if you're over here, go ahead and select the brush tool. It's right here. The same brush settings I always have. Which should be the hard. Not sure why it was on the soft, but it should be hard. Now there's a mandala option within Photoshop, and I have used Photoshop for years and never knew about it, but under the brush tool, you would actually come here. So I discovered this just a few years ago, and it blew my mind. I've been using Photoshop since I was 19, and I'm 40 now, and I didn't know this was here, so it was a shock to find it just 2 or 3 years ago. So under this little butterfly looking option, you have all of these different things. If you have an old version of Photoshop, you've got to use dual axis, and then you've got to rename it. So if I selected that, I then need to go to paths and rename it to mandala symmetry or radial symmetry. But with the current version, and it's probably pretty old at this point that you would use that, you would come down here and select mandala. The segment counts are just how much it's split. So for the snowflake, we're going to go ahead and do the full amount, which is 10. So that's the most it'll split. But you can see you can change these segments just by dragging the slider or typing in the value. So I'm going to hit OK. What that's going to do is open up a box that kind of looks like a free transform box. And you can see here that's what's selected. And so we're just going to drag it to as big as we want. So I'm going to go ahead and pull it over and hit Enter to accept that. I'm going to change my brush to white. So this is the easiest way I've found to create a snowflake, and it's not going to take very long. So first of all, to get used to the Mandala tool, right, it's basically going to mirror every drawing, every line you make in all of these segments, right? So, as I draw, you can see what it does. Pretty cool, fascinating tool. But to do a snowflake, there's sort of several things to keep in mind. The first is which typically the center has, pretty tight design, and then you have these pieces coming off of it. So what I'm going to do is actually draw a series of squares in the middle, and because of the way the mandala works, it'll just sort of fill that in. And I'm going to start small, and I'm just doing squares, progressively bigger, right? Okay. And then I'm going to come up here, and what I'm going to do is wiggle my brush back and forth, and I'm going to take this all the way to the tip, make it smaller as I get to the tip, and it takes a second. You can see it working, right? Okay. So then I'm going to come back in the middle here, and I'm going to create an up and down line, connect it in. You can kind of see what that's doing. And then a segment a little higher, do the same thing. And then make it smaller as you come towards the end. Not connecting this time. And then a little higher, same thing, even smaller, kind of doing it at that upward angle. And you can kind of see, you can create a snowflake. This is the easiest way I've found to do it. Super simple. If you want to make this tighter, right, you can just come in here and tighten this up by adding more lines to really sort of make that a tighter design, thicker, brighter design. And since the bottom became really thick, I'm going to actually do it in the middle too. Make sure that's nice and bright. You can also, on snowflakes, it's not uncommon for them to have like little pieces coming off, like little extra ones coming off of the center point. Oh, that one probably wasn't as good. All right, so off of here, I'm going to have one at an angle coming up. That also wasn't as good. And then maybe one coming down. So you can do this as well. To add more intricacy. Or you can leave it a little simpler. Right? And there you go, you have a snowflake. Be careful here, and you can kind of see I pushed it all the way off the edge, so be careful not to do that. Went a little too long on my snowflake. But, you know, this is what you get. You have basically a snowflake that you can then resize as you want because it's its own thing. So very straightforward. Very simple to do, but the easiest way to do it is with the Mandala tool, because then it's going to mimic it, and it's very easy to get those patterns in place. So, one more time. I'm going to select this. See, it's already in place. I'm going to start small squares into bigger squares. And then we're going to take and squiggle the pin back and forth. Right, squiggle. Make it smaller as we get towards the end. And make it a little shorter so that I don't go off the edge this time. And maybe also make sure that it connects back in. And then I'm going to go up and down for these lines, starting in the center, connecting these two together, coming up a little higher, doing another set, coming up at an angle, making them smaller as they come out, right? And going up at this angle, going up this way. Come up a little higher, do the same thing. Make it a little smaller. So we can make this one probably a little longer. Not connecting, but a little longer. And, you know, if you want to, you can always have little pieces coming off of that. Nothing long or big. And make it however intricate you want, and you have a snowflake. So simple, you know, you just, and the squares don't have to be perfect, you know, when I'm doing that. And you can see I don't even have to reset the mandala, it knows I'm there. When I'm doing that, right, if I just do a square, this is how it turns out. And you can see square, 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 square. It's just how it's turning out. So different shapes will do different things, and the more you do something, the thicker something will be in a certain spot. So, it's a pretty cool tool. Highly recommend it. But if you want to design a snowflake, it's a pretty cool thing to do. You can have less segments if you prefer. In that mandala, when I set it to 10, you can have less, but I think 10 works out well. It certainly looks snowflake-like. Let's both of them together. So yeah, you want to draw a snowflake, use the Mandala tool, do some squares, then some squiggles, and then some at a diagonal, and you'll end up with a cool looking snowflake. Alright, so that's how you draw a snowflake. I hope that's helpful. In the floating nether next to me, I have other videos of art tutorials I have done, and I will see you all soon. Thank you so much. Take care.